Welcome to part 2 of our diversity and inclusion Q&A initiative. Thank you so much for sharing your story in part 1. We really loved hearing all about your journey, and you shared some great advice for anyone wanting to get involved in the technology market. So thank you very much.
Very happy to be here again.
Look forward to speaking to you today about all things diversity, inclusion, and I guess exploring a little bit more about what we can do to appeal and attract to women in tech.
Definitely. I think this topic is very close to my heart, and I'm very excited about today's conversation. Let's see.
Good. We're excited to speak with you. So firstly, I'd love to ask you, throughout your career, and I know you've had the chance of working in different industries, different size businesses, typically how has the gender balance looked for you within your teams that you've been a part of?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. The gender balance have been terrible. I cannot focus much more. That it has been exhausting to be part of all this, to have to sit through this and have this front row seat to this. I know sometimes I refer to it as a disaster show as well. Maybe I'm using some intense language, but this is really how I feel about this topic, because I have worked in teams where there are even not just team, whole department where I have been the only woman. And my experience from this situation is that it's not fun. It's not fun to be the odd one out. It's not fun to be the only person in the team who looks different. It's not fun. It's very exhausting. It's very mentally exhausting. It's very intense, because each and every action of yours is highlighted, not because, just because you're a woman, because you're different. So I'm pretty sure it would be the same if there is one man in a team of 40 women. His actions, his behavior will be highlighted more, or will be more, out in the open compared to everyone else who looks the same. So I think it has been a very intense journey for me. But you have to live, and you have to do what you love. So that's why I never left the industry, even though I have been very, very close to that, but I never left the industry. Yeah.
For you personally, having that as a challenge and a struggle, how did you overcome that mental blocker, I guess, that you were facing?
I think this was much more of a challenge when I was new in the industry, when I was junior, and I had to work with a lot of senior people. But now I feel very comfortable in who I am, who I have become. I'm very comfortable in my technical skills. I'm very comfortable in my abilities and what I do and what I can do at work. So I don't really feel the same amount of intensity as I did when I was younger. So I think, and your question is more about what did I do to overcome this? And I think it's just being persistent. I mean, I've had days when I have cried and gone to like a toilet and I've cried my eyes out, not because I'm a woman, but because it's so intense sometimes. Or maybe just being in such an intimidating environment when you're a junior person, it has been intense. But how I overcame it is just one day at a time, one step at a time. And the most important thing that I learned during all this is to learn to speak up. If you are uncomfortable, or if you feel that someone have been dishonest with you, or someone have been unfair to you, or you're not getting a fair chance to what you deserve, speak up for yourself. That's the most important lesson that I've learned. Speak up for yourself, because sometimes when you are the odd one out, sometimes you get highlighted, but sometimes you're also invisible. So, learn to speak up for yourself and learn to take care of yourself. I think that's so important. So important.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of people can learn from your experience and how you overcome that as well. What other advice would you give to, I guess, anyone in a business where they feel there genuinely is that lack of diversity? And again, it comes in many different forms, not just gender. Speaking up is one of them, but what else could you share?
I think when it comes to businesses and organizations, I do think that especially in Stockholm, a lot of businesses, they make a lot of effort, they try a lot. So I will not really blame an organization for not having a diverse team. I think it's a bit unfair because yeah, there are a lot of other things that become a hurdle. Like for example, one of the things that I think the organizations can do is that I don't know why it is, but whenever I go to like a new job or something, people by default assume that I am either a project manager or I'm a tester.
No
And
way.
I don't understand why is that. I mean, this is exactly what stereotyping means, that because these are the roles where you will find more women compared to being, developers or being on the infrastructure side of the things. So I think these are the things that organizations can take care of more. That okay, if you have a woman developer or a woman in IT or a woman in operations side, just focus on the fact that okay, this is a technical person, we expect to have a technical conversation with you. Don't try to make things uncomfortable by stereotyping them into roles like testing and project management. I don't think there's anything wrong in testing and project management. I think these are fantastic fields in tech, but I don't understand the whole stereotyping around these roles. It actually makes me very, very sad for the women who actually work in these fields, because it's just really wrong. This is
Mm.
my personal experience that I'm sharing with you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And
Mm.
that also touches on unconscious bias, right? And
Mm.
we talk about this quite a lot, making an assumption of someone before you
Yes.
even know anything about them. And that happens so much in businesses, in recruitment processes. And a
Yeah.
big thing is about educating your people on that. So
Yes.
you can become aware of it. Sometimes I myself am guilty of kind of
Mm.
unconscious bias, and it happens without us even realizing sometimes, but
Mm.
noticing it, realizing
Mm.
it, and learning from it, that's
Yes.
key. So
I
within
agree.
the businesses that you've been involved with, I know diversity has been lacking slightly in terms of
Mm.
gender, but have you seen any initiatives that they've had in place to try and promote this, to try and encourage more women in the industry?
Mm. Uh, as I've said before as well, I don't think I will ever blame an organization for the lack of diversity. It's just the overall industry. That's how it is. And I do think that when I worked in bigger organizations, there were a lot of initiatives. For example, there are mostly women specific groups where women can come and there's a senior leader woman who would come in and would talk to the junior woman. So I think there are a lot of initiatives that companies they try to start, and I think it's great. I think even outside work there are a lot of initiatives that have started, that communities, groups. So there is a lot of work being done, but like I said, I always say that I might not be able to see a very balanced tech industry in my lifetime, but I want to make sure that I do the right work and put in the effort where it is needed to make sure that the future generations can have a more balanced tech industry.
Mm, that's so important. So what steps can people take to help achieve that, do you think, if you think of what you're doing currently?
I think it's really hard for me to answer. I think it starts from kindergarten. Maybe it starts from school, when women are discouraged to take mathematics or science or physics, or in primary school, in high school. It starts there. When I don't know who started this thing, but somehow women think that okay, we don't understand mathematics or we don't understand physics. I think it all starts from there. I think when you enter a professional life, I do sometimes feel that you can make a change when someone is entering a professional life, but it's very hard to make a change at that level. I think
Mm.
it starts from what kind of environment you're provided in your home, what kind of teachers you have. I think that's where the real change needs to take place, and then you will see the change happening at the higher level. So you need to really start from the bottom. I That's what I think. Yeah.
Definitely. I completely agree. I think we have to still work on changing those stereotypes of what programming looks like or what a typical programmer looks like. And we talk about this a lot. It certainly is changing and getting better, but this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to set up this initiative as well, is to share stories and create relatable role models for the younger generation. Actually hear how cool it is being in tech, the great things you can do in tech as well, right? And I touched on this in a blog post that I wrote last year, but maybe companies can actually look to partner with people in secondary schools, in junior schools, and actually have women go in and make a presentation to a school about what it is they're doing, the work they're doing, the impact it's made on the business, on society as a whole. I know if I had that when I was growing up, a woman in tech come in and do a kick-ass presentation, it would definitely have inspired me or made me think about a career in tech.
I think it's more about when you see a successful person, when you see a person who's really living the dream life, you want to be like that person, because at the end of the day, we all want to have a good life, right? And I think in tech, you can have a pretty good life.
As a manager, the experiences that you've had as head of platform, for example, how have you yourself found it best to promote women in the workplace and to also nurture women in the workplace?
I think this is a really good question, because as a manager, the set of problems that women come to me are very different from the set of problems that, you know, men come to me. And I think that's where you see a lot of difference as well, because, you know, it has been repeated again and again in many researches that, for example, if there's a job description, a man would apply for that job even if he doesn't meet even 50% of the criteria, but a woman would wait to apply for that job unless or until she meets 100% of the criteria. And I think that's a real eye-opener research for me, because it seems like that, because, you know, men and women, we tend to think differently. Women are more like, okay, perfectionist, everything should be, you know, in order, everything should be in place. But, you know, sometimes in life you have to take chances and you have to apply for things, right? You have to go after things that you even feel like are out of your reach. So I think this is what I always tell all the women that I work with, that believe in yourself. You are better than you think you are. Because I personally think that when I was a junior person, I also thought that I'm not good enough. I don't know why it is like this, but it is like this. And I have to really work on myself actively to tell myself that I'm actually better than what I think I am. So I always encourage women, well, I encourage everybody, every person that I work with, that they need to believe in themselves, they need to believe in the work that they're doing, because it eventually defines who they are. The work that they're doing defines who they are. So believe in your work. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Believe in the work and stay strong when it comes to, you know, moving ahead in life. Do not hesitate away from difficulties and just march on.
Wow, that's some really powerful insights there. Thank you so much for sharing, Ambreen. And you're right. I think as women as well, naturally, we do tend to try and chase perfection. I know myself, I've been in that situation. And when I look at some job descriptions and you see 15 different technologies listed, I mean, is anyone going to have every single one of those technologies and be a good fit, right? So from your opinion, what do you think companies should be doing when it comes to job descriptions, changing those to appeal to more diverse groups of people?
It's a really like a tight spot to answer a question, because a company would write a job description based on what they think needs to be done. But maybe avoid writing gender specific job descriptions, because I have seen such a job description. Or avoid writing things like that our developer should look like a hipster with a beard. It's just so wrong, because it automatically discourages, you know, 50% of the population to not apply for the job. So make your job description about the technology. Okay, I know you want to sound like a cool company, but don't write things like that, you know, that we think that a developer should have a beard, because I have seen that in a job description. I was so surprised and amazed. It's just weird.
A lot of companies maybe make that mistake of thinking that it sounds
Unconscious.
cool and quirky, but actually it's probably doing more harm than good.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
using gender neutral language is absolutely key, I think, in terms of job descriptions moving forwards.
I don't think that this is like a conscious mistake. I think it's just unconscious. It's just that companies can maybe, hire people who can proofread the job descriptions.
I mentioned this in a previous interview. It's the whole using the term like rock star as well, right? Or like ninja and things like that. As women, we can't necessarily relate to that as much. And although companies think, oh, that sounds really cool, really quirky, that's going to set us apart, maybe they're losing out on more diverse groups of people applying because of one word. It can make all the difference, right? It's crazy.
I 100% agree with that. It's just, I know you want to sound cool, but what is the cost of sounding cool like that?
So throughout your career, what kind of challenges and obstacles have you had when it comes to diversity, and how have you handled those?
There are many examples that I can discuss here, but there is particularly one incident that I always share. I have shared that before in a workshop as well, that I was this young, naive person, and I joined the company, with one other person. So it was this guy and this me, and we both joined in as Java developers. And so what happened was that, 6 months in, I was really frustrated with my position. Why? Because there were a lot of things happening that were really a hurdle in me becoming a better Java developer at my job. So that guy got assigned a mentor who was a senior developer. I didn't get assigned a mentor. There's a new project that is starting. So yes, why don't you come in and, work on this project? I am not invited to work on that project. And there is a course that the team will be giving out to the rest of the organization. He can take the course, but no one asked me if I want to take the course as well. So there was a lot of things happening, and I kind of felt like a lot of opportunities are being given to him by default, and nobody even asks me about those opportunities, and nobody even discussed them with me. And that really, really frustrated me, because the first thing that came to my mind was that maybe I'm not a good Java developer. Maybe that's why these opportunities are not coming my way. That was the first thing that came to my mind. But I don't know. I look back and I was like, wow, I must have been really wise to have, do something about it. So what I did was that one day I decided to set up a meeting with my manager, and I sat with him face to face on a table, and I shared my concerns with him. And my manager immediately apologized to me, and he told me that he didn't realize this was happening. So it's nobody's mistakes. It's not my manager's mistakes. It's not that person's mistake. It's just that there was some kind of an assumption that maybe I'll not be interested in doing all this work. And my manager repeatedly apologized to me, and I still was quite young, and I couldn't really grasp what has happened. But afterwards, when I read up on this, it's a very clear example of unconscious bias. And imagine if I had not talked to my manager that day, I would have spent my whole life thinking that I'm not a good Java developer, because that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Wow.
And I think this story touches me, because when you think about this story, it's nobody's fault, right? It's just our circumstances that push us into a direction to think that way. So that's why I said before as well that to all the women, that speak up for yourself. You might not be fortunate enough that someone will speak for you, because the industry is changing. We're still making room for women in the industry. So there might not be no one who will speak for you. So you have to learn to speak for yourself. And that really will change everything. The day you will learn to speak for yourself, it will change everything.
Thank you, Ambreen, for sharing that. I really, really appreciate your openness in this discussion that we're having. And Naturally, some women may be very nervous, scared to
Yes.
have this conversation with their manager because it's a big topic. So what would be your advice here as well? How can you find that courage from within?
This courage does not come naturally. It doesn't come to me naturally. Maybe it comes to some people naturally, but it doesn't come to me naturally. I had to actively work on it. And I will always remember this one thing that I read somewhere, and I can't remember where, but it said something like, be afraid, but do it anyways. It's okay to be afraid, be afraid. Like, I'm afraid all the time. I'm afraid even sometimes if I'm going to a meeting. I'm afraid when I'm getting on stage to speak, but I do it anyways because I know that I have to do this in order to come on the other end as a survivor, as a winner, as a warrior. You have to do this. You have to go through this. Otherwise, you will end up not believing in yourself and depressed and maybe changing your profession altogether. So be afraid, but do it anyways, because that's the only option you have right now in life.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Certainly, I think everyone goes through an element of fear at some
Yeah.
point in their life, right? And
Yeah.
that's okay.
It's so inhuman of us to think that we are not afraid. I think all humans are afraid all the time. Even a lot of men are afraid to do a lot of things, but it's just a matter of overcoming your fear and having and finding that courage, because courage does not come naturally. You have to find your courage wherever it lies. You have to find it.
And sometimes I think instead of fighting the fear, actually embrace it, let it in, take a moment to analyze that and like come up with a game plan as to how you can move forwards. There's nothing wrong in doing that as well, right?
I agree 100%.
What do you think is the best part about being a woman in the tech industry?
Well, it's funny because I tweeted about it some time ago, and that is like, when you go to a conference, you don't have to stand in a queue in front of a bathroom or a restroom. I know it's just a funny thing, but I just wanted to add a bit of humor to our intense conversation, because it's like I have like a photo that I can share with you as well. I went to this conference and there was a huge queue of guys in front of the restroom, and the women restroom was empty. So I was like, yeah, why
Really?
not? No, but that's just like on a humorous side. But on a serious note, I will say that there are so many advantages of being a woman in tech. Or maybe I'll just say, let's just think in terms of choosing tech as your field. What are the advantages of choosing tech as a field? I think there is it's so much happening. There's so much opportunity to learn. And one of the things that actually make me very sad is that if you look at the list of most valued professions or highly paid professions in the world, being a programmer or being a DevOps or being an operations person or even a tester is like really like, high on the chart. Being a programmer is one of the highest paid jobs in the world. I kind of feel like that when a lot of women, they choose not to come into the tech industry, they are missing out on a lot of financial independence as well. We always complain about, okay, that there is a inequality when it comes to men and women, how they are paid. So I think it's also important that when a woman who she decides to choose a profession, maybe it's good to consider the finances, because I know, and I have talked to so many women, they don't really prioritize finances the same way as a man would. So I think it's very important for women to prioritize their finances and choose a profession that is financially rewarding as well. So I think tech is one of those fields where you are financially rewarded in a way that you can live a good life.
I know earlier on we spoke as well a little bit about the diversity that you've had within your teams in the past. So I can already, I guess, imagine what your answer is going to be on this. But do you still notice a lack of women in tech?
Yes, definitely I do. But then, on the same hand, I also don't believe in forcing diversity.
Mm.
And forced diversity is visible, and it's actually, in my personal opinion, a lot more harmful than natural diversity. Because if you look into nature is very diverse, but it's all very organic, right? Organic diversity. I sometimes think that our diversity should not be forced, but then on like sometimes I think that, because it's a new field for women are struggling a little bit in this field, not struggling in terms of work, but struggling to make a place for themselves in this field. Then maybe sometimes it's all right to give an opportunity to a person to come in and join the team and see and learn how tech works. So I don't believe in forced diversity, but you should definitely create an environment within your team where a woman, when she joins the team, she feels comfortable.
Why do you think that is the case?
If you look at the statistics, if you go to the statistics at university level, you will see a lot of women studying computer science. You will see a lot of women studying computer networks or cloud or whatever is applicable to that university. But the problem happens once they start into the professional life, because this is like a documented research that the amount of women who enter into the tech industry is a lot more, but the amount of women who survive in the tech industry is a lot less. So I think the problem here is definitely around the area that something is discouraging from women to stay in tech for a long period of time. And that is something that needs to be looked into, what it is. I personally do not have an answer, and that really is the honest answer. I don't know what is it. I don't know. I can't really say much, but that's what the statistics are.
Obviously, we don't know the reasons maybe why they're leaving, but what can we do to try and keep them?
I actually remember writing about this, is that teaching women early on about things like imposter syndrome or things like mansplaining will really help. At least it helped me a lot. For example, when someone suffers from imposter syndrome, they think they're the only one. Because what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is that you feel guilty. You feel like you don't deserve to be here. You feel like you do not have the right skills to be in this team. And trust me, everybody feels that way, but women tend to feel it a lot more. So the best thing in the situation, if there's a woman who's struggling with this and she feels like she's not good enough to be part of this team, tell her that this is imposter syndrome and it's all right. It's all right if you feel that way. We will fix it as we move ahead. And then there's this whole concept of mansplaining. What is mansplaining? Is like, mansplaining is a concept where a woman says something and she knows what she's talking about, but a man interrupts her and explains the same thing to her. Like, if I'm an expert in a field, but a man interrupts me and try to explain to me the things that are related to my field.
Yeah.
And because that again validates this concept in your heart that I don't know, but what he's saying is right, So I think these small things that are unconscious, that are that nobody is doing to intentionally harm the other person, but it's just the way how our industry is. I think learning about these things early in your career can be very, very helpful. And I think I've said to you last week as well that as a senior person in this field, I feel very responsible towards the new people, towards the younger people in this field, and I want to mentor them. And that was one of my main reasons to join the management and be a manager.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome is very real. And it's usually as well moments of success, I feel. Like you feel like you're almost going to get caught out by your colleagues and that it's just luck that you're getting to this stage. And I read an article about imposter syndrome not that long ago, and it actually said that over 70% of people have imposter syndrome or have faced it in their life. So if you are having those feelings, you really aren't alone. I completely agree with you that the first step of getting over it is talking about it and raising that awareness of it. And these feelings are okay. It's imposter syndrome. You're great at what you do. Now that we move on and we move forward from it and we learn from it.
Yes. And I'm very happy to share that I also suffered from imposter syndrome. So don't feel alone if you feel that way. Do not feel alone. We're all in this together, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, the dream team.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to anyone trying to get into the technology space right now?
I'll say don't miss the opportunity. If you have an opportunity, jump in, because we're definitely going for a ride in the industry. things in the future, they're moving towards automation. I mean, if you look at banks have an IT department. If you look at, I don't know, supermarkets, every supermarket, they have an app. They have a automated checkout system. You look at online clothing, they have an IT department, a tech department. Every furniture store, consumer goods, doctors, medicines, everybody have a tech department. So, and it's going to get even more in the future. And I always tell people that, you know, there is a lack of developers in the world right now. There is a lack of developer. According to a survey, people actually want more developers. So if you choose this field, you might not ever lose your job. You know, if you're a good developer, you'll always have a good job.
I know firsthand, obviously, I support businesses with their team growth plans in tech, and the demand is through the roof. So, as Ambreen said, jump in, enjoy the ride,
Yes.
because it's one hell of a ride at the moment.
It's fun. I love it. And I love it. And I'm sure you'll love it too. So,
Yeah. Finally, Ambreen, I wondered if you could share any initiatives or organizations, communities that you're aware of that are promoting diversity in tech, women in tech.
I think worldwide there are a lot of organizations. For example, if you look at Pi Ladies is a all-woman group where women meet and they discuss not necessarily Python, but you know, a lot of things that are related to tech. And every city tends to have a chapter for Pi Ladies. Like there's Pi Ladies London, there is Pi Ladies Stockholm, there is Pi Ladies Berlin. So every city have its own chapter. And if you talk to me specifically about Stockholm, within Stockholm, there's this huge women in tech forum. There is code pub that happens where women gather up and they code together.
Thank you so much for sharing, all of your insights into your experience as a woman in tech, your ideas on diversity, on what more we can do to appeal to women in tech. It's been really valuable.
It was really nice to talk to you.
It's an absolute pleasure. And you take care, Ambreen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.